all the videos you've seen so far have been specifically more or less aimed Amiga owners, which is the big target of this campaign. However, I'm a big Amiga fan, but I also love building powerful PCs, and I also like virtual reality. So for me, this case is more than just about the Amiga. Long term, as a Kickstarter to build some cases for Amiga fans out there, because it's been very popular. You know, if it makes it to the Amiga community and everyone manages who wants one gets one, then I'll be happy. However, to be a long-term project, it needs to sell to the PC retro community or people who want a nice desktop case, because at the moment the market is completely saturated with tower cases, and the only desktop cases you see are where they put them underneath the TV. So a desktop case I think is missing, and you know, you like the style or you don't. It is retro inspired, but it is very modern in concept, and internally it is modern. So this video is going to go, I'm going to open the case up and I'm going to show you the internals and my thinking processes about building it based on obviously the limiting factors. Is limiting a word? The limitations of a small form factor case, because although this seems to be quite a big case, it is obviously considered a small form factor because of the height, etc. But you can get quite a lot in there, and we've done I think I've done a reasonable job at thinking about all the problems that PC builders will face. I'm talking about sound, I'm talking about the heat generation by these advanced bits of kit. Now, this is making no noise at all. This thing is pretty much, at the moment, it's not doing very much, obviously, but it's pretty much silent. Now, I'm not going to go to town in this video because I've actually done a video about this. If you look, well, either look at my channel or look further down the Kickstarter, you'll see I did a video about temperatures where I ramp everything up full power, and it runs very quietly. In fact, I mean, I don't want to say silent, but it's as near as damn it. And that's running at normal, you know, applications. I'm actually running here the Amiga emulation system, which probably taking about 30% CPU, and yet it's as silent as anything. Now, this is because it has water cooling, it has a good quality power supply, and the GPU is a blower. No, I'll open it up and go into more details. But let's cover something else, of course. Now, the title's going to mention the Raspberry Pi. Now, obviously, I'm a big fan of the Raspberry Pi. I think it's been an amazing little computer, as long as you understand what it's for. But it's got amazing functionality. Now, from the point of view of a retro fan who wants to build an Amiga-inspired system, now the first thing you're going to say is, well, this case is a ridiculous amount of money to build a Raspberry Pi, and you know, there's some, I can understand that, because if you're paying 35, say £45 for one of these with a RAM card, etc., to then spend £159 on this case and £30 for an internal power supply for one of, that's quite expensive if you're just looking at it from the point of view of a Raspberry Pi, as a system for Raspberry Pi. But if you're coming from the other side and you're an Amiga fan or retro computer fan, the Raspberry Pi is your weapon of choice when it comes to emulating these machines. Now, people have no problem spending £200, £300, £400 building a system like that. Now, if you take into account this case, say £159 for the case, £30 for an internal power supply, maybe a tenner for a keyboard, tenner for a mouse, you're talking around £200 for the case, etc. Chuck in a Raspberry Pi for £50 with a memory card, and you're then talking about £250 for one of the best retro environments. Apart from going for full-blown high-end PC, but one of the best retro environments you can get, in a really nice, forgive me, but this is other people saying the same thing, for a nice looking case. And remember, this is based on the Amiga 3000, so it's not, hopefully it's not considered me being arrogant, but it is a good looking case because the original designer made such a great job. So it's not as daft as it may sound, and I'm not saying if your your budget is £50, this is it. No, it's not. But I think for Raspberry Pi fans who are buying it for retro computing, I don't think it's too bad actually. It is still a bit high, but I don't think it's too bad at all. Raspberry Pi, I think this makes an interesting case, but not the cheapest. But if you're a retro fan and you want to build a retro machine, then you think you'd like it to look good as well as perform well, because interestingly, this is based on the Amiga 3000. This emulates the Amiga 3000 about 25 times to 28 times faster. So actually it gives a really good, it's like the fastest ever. Even if you accelerate it with an 060, put a graphics card and everything in the 3000, which would be an amazing machine. If you've got an 060 in it, this would still be probably 2-3 times faster and give much faster graphics. So you build actually a really nice retro machine and a great Amiga experience for a couple of £100, say £250 all in. So yeah, Raspberry Pi, that's covered that. Right. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go off camera and we're going to have a look inside the machine, and I'm going to explain how my thought processes were going. And to show you the bits inside it. So I think first of all what we'll do is we'll show you a slide with all the components, put that up for a few seconds, and then I'll come back. Okay, so as you can see from the front here, first of all we have the slide-in keyboard. Now this is an option. The legs, there's riser legs either side which screw into the main case, gives you the option to be able to slide the keyboard in and out. Now personally I think it's great, and a lot of people like that. But it's not for everyone. So if you don't want that, don't. Well, they're an optional extra anyway, so it doesn't really matter. On the bottom here, now this is still a prototype. This bit here, obviously, I haven't got the blanking bit around the edge, but you can see where you have the option of putting your USB and audio input and outputs in the front if you want it, or you can have that completely blank. It depends on what you want. Now I'm talking specifically about PC now, not Amiga. It's very important to understand that. Now you can also see that I've got the blanking plate for a slot loading DVD drive, which is actually another machine, and this is an Amiga floppy disk drive, which obviously is not for this machine, but it shows the different types of panels that you can put in it. The case is designed so that you can slide in and out a 5 1/4 inch drive, and that will go in there, or you just put these plates in to adapt 3 1/2 inch devices. So this one here, in fact this is another Amiga 1 prototype, but here's a blank, and you can see they've got the two fixings at the back, and they come from the rear and then screw into this front panel here. And there's a number that we're doing. Somewhere I have actually got one that allows you to slide in the 3 1/2 inch drive, which I can't see at the moment. But anyway, so there's various panels. Now with the Kickstarter, I'm doing 3 panels to start with: default, the blank, the Amiga, and that 3 1/2 adapter. Hopefully, if the Kickstarter gets up to 90,000, then I can afford to make this one as well, injection mold it. Now, if it comes to state where I can't make the mold for this one, you'll still be able to buy these. The designs are available. It just means instead of me charging a £5 for them, they cost £30 to be 3D printed, which obviously adds quite a bit. So that's the fun. Oh, you can see there's a switch at the front here. And now the logo, the question's been asked. That logo is, we're going to give you stickers to put on it, but it's not. It's going to be left blank, so you can put what you like in this part here. But I suppose the most important bit, if as a PC builder, is the bit at the bottom, is the air vents going. That they will let an awful lot of air suck through this case, and that I've made the design choices based on the fact that sucks through an awful lot of air. There will be in the future, not initially, there will be in the future a filter that goes in the back, and we'll make that available. That's just down to cost, etc. So let's have a look inside now, shall we? Okay, so what we can see now here on the right hand side, we have the SFX power supply. Now this is a 450 watt, good quality one. This is not penny pinching on here. You can get 300 watt ones. Please do not buy one if you're building a PC. You need the good quality one to give you the extra power. In front of that, you'll see the 120mm fan, which is sitting above a radiator. Now that's a 120mm water cool radiator. You can see the pipes are coming here. You do notice they kind of getting not getting away, but there's kind of a bit of it's a bit busy around here. We're going to push the case back a little bit to give it a bit more room for these connectors. Obviously this is the second prototype and we learn this as we're going along, and that's going to give that a bit more space. But so you can see there's a water cooling unit. It's only a 120mm rad. It can't do bigger than that because there's no room. Even if we technically they could go underneath, but we don't want to. We're sticking at 120. And to be fair, it gives fantastic performance, and it's rated up to, this one's a Gamer Storm, cost about £38. It's cheaper than some of the fans, the normal fans, and yet it's water cooling, and it goes onto the, obviously onto the CPUs. You can see here. I have an MSI Gamer Micro ATX board. Now the Micro ATX is an interesting one because you can buy Mini ATX or Micro ATX. Now the only difference really being is half the price for the Micro ATX. So this is a gaming motherboard and it was about £55, whereas the cheapest gaming Mini ITX board I could get was about 110, so it's like crazy. The only difference being you get extra slots. Now admittedly in a small form factor you're probably not going to use it because your 2 bays for the GPU will be used up with your graphics card, so it's unlikely you'll use them unless you want to make yourself adapt it accordingly. You'll notice I've got two 8 gig DIMMs, DDR4 DIMMs. These, of course, they're Vengeance in this one. And here is probably the star of the show, is my GTX 1080. Now at the back you can see 3 50mm fans. Now these are called silent, and actually I've got to be honest, they may well be silent. They are absolutely fantastic little fans, and I'm well pleased with them. And I've got them all connected up, all joined together, and they disappears underneath here. So anyway, we got the 3 50mm fans. They do run very well. They're tied to the fan, so you can't see that fan. They're tied to the same controller on the motherboard as the 120mm fan for the water cooling. So I've got it set on the motherboard so that it comes on. The fans don't really start to come on until you get to about 20 degrees, something like that. But you can adjust your profile accordingly. But I think they do fantastic performance, and they're very, very quiet. Now I suppose this one's a bit more interesting, really. This is the drive tray. Now the drive tray is an interesting one because, depending on, again, because this is a small form factor case, you are limited in space. So you can see doesn't look like I'm doing anything in here, but I do have my SSD card. You can just see it poking out under here, and I have a 0.5 terabyte SSD drive sitting underneath there and screwed to the base, giving me room still for putting cases on drives on top, so you can screw above and below. Now, of course, if you're over here, you see what we've got. If you've got the water cooling, you're kind of closing up your space, but you can still get a 3.5-inch device in here. You could put another solid state drive if you wanted to. We're still kind of experimenting the best. So you can see there's loads of screws on here and fittings, etc. And we're still experimenting with what exactly and how you want to mount these. But if you just had the fan in with no water cooling, you could put a 5.25-inch device in there. However, if you was clever, you could probably mount the 5.25-inch device over this side, which wouldn't be too much of a problem. And so it's really a case of, this is where people have to be clever actually mounting, because at the end of the day there's only so much space in this case, and I don't think for PCs it's a big deal. I think most people these days with PCs probably have 2 blanks on the front and they'll just have SSDs and away they go. But yeah, so there's another view. You'll notice down here, if I just aim down here, you can see there's the LED board. If I just tip in a bit, there's the LED card that does the LEDs at the front. Now we're copying the Amiga 3000 look, hence why it says power and hard disk. Okay. Anyway, so as far as ventilation, if I just tip down underneath, and you can see the air will float through there and be sucked up into the GPU, which the blower is under, the fan is under here, and then all the air gets blown straight out the back. That's why this case remains pretty cool. Anyway, so like this, it actually runs fairly, almost silent. This fan, and this power supply, for another example, this power supply has, although it's rated at 450, and it's a gold rated one, the great thing about it is in normal use it's silent. So it's got a lovely little silent mode, so you hardly hear anything, and this thing is really quite a beautiful fan, that is. And basically, as you didn't hear earlier, it is pretty silent. Anyway, so that's the inside of the case. Okay, so around the back you can see where here's the power supply. Now, this is for potentially fitting a Raspberry Pi in there, or some other thing that you may want. So there's a blanking panel, but basically that's a user panel, so you'll be able to 3D print panels to do anything you like with that. The one on the far side is actually going to be removed because it just gets in the way of the motherboard, so we don't need that. And you can see at the top here's my GPU coming through, and there's my fans and the usual ATX rear panel. Yeah, so that's really not much to say about that. That's just the rear of the case. Hopefully that answers your questions as far as the internals of the design of the case and what it can do for you. It can't do everything. It's not an overclocker's case, but what it is I think, and others agree, it's a nice looking retro inspired desktop case. And desktop cases are very rare these days. And it has a few little nice features, as I said. This one my favourite, because at night I just put my hide my keyboard away, and it keeps the dust off it. So little things like that, and yet it can still run a high performance system faster than most people would necessarily have. And over time, we have other plans for this case, which again you will be able to modify if you purchase this version. The plans, we will let you upgrade, etc. But to give an example, and this will not be part of the Kickstarter, but we are looking at potentially, if it's a success, is to have a see-through window on the left-hand side so you can see your GPU. That's the kind of thing we're thinking. But if the Kickstarter fails, doesn't reach its target, then this will never happen. So, but again, if you do buy the case and you want to do something like that, we will then upgrade the part that you've got, because once the product is launched, the design will not inherently change. Just certain components may. So, for example, the lid may have a window down the side, but then you'll be able to order a new lid. Or we may do some extra things with the drive tray, and you'll be able to order a new drive tray. So these kind of modifications we'll do over time, but the core parts of it will stay the same. The other thing, of course, is, which I have mentioned in the past, is if the Kickstarter is successful, we will be releasing all of the design drawings of everything of the case. And the reason for this is, I'm taking a long view on this, that it enables, especially the retro community, to be able to build their own components, and by having exact dimensions, you can make yourself panels. Say, for example, you want to build a component inside, you'll have the exact dimensions, and you'll have, for example, the kind of all the objects that we created or we used from third parties. You'll have this, so you can have a look and have a play and work out your dimensions, see how you're going to fit. For example, these panels at the front, which are going to be user creatable, you'll have the designs for these, and so you'll be able to modify them to suit your own needs. We hope it's going to be to come out, and I look forward, if it is. I look forward to seeing what people will do to customize it. As I said, if possible, we may at some point, I don't know yet, we may be able to do a complete see-through top. This was asked. I cannot do it in the initial stages. Maybe in the future, new ideas. There was talk of a tower, but I think it might be a case of designing the tower separately. But hopefully that's answered your questions. Hopefully the idea of a desktop case is interesting, and is something different. And if you do have Raspberry Pi and you want to build one of these. During this video, there's going to be cutting some footage of a Raspberry Pi fit in there, but there's a number of ways you can put a Pi in it. I mean, as you can imagine, the Pi is fairly small. But it does allow you to then, even though I know it's overkill, but it does allow you to have a 300 watt power supply to power 5¼ drives, lots of drives inside it here, and a Pi. For example, being able to build an Amiga with a Pi in there at the same time, being able to build a PC with a Raspberry Pi in there at the same time. There's lots of options with this. So hopefully it's going to answer your questions. I have got some more, if you're watching this on my Kickstarter and it hasn't gone past yet. I am doing some more Q&As coming up on the next couple of Sundays. So maybe if you've got any more questions I haven't answered, come along there and have watched that and see if you can get some more information. Anyway, I'll have to go now. This is going to go on forever. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you soon.